Hello, and you're very welcome to the Contact Book. It's a show like no other because this is where our guests put their contact books and I guess their trust in my hands. We look back at their life and times with a bit of help from those who know them best as we delve into their contact book to hear their life stories from all sides. It's enlightening and it's heartwarming and it's funny. And oh yes, it is unpredictable. I'm Craig Doyle and this is the Contact Book. So someone asked me the other day, is this just a rugby show? I think it might have been my mother actually. And I thought about it. I said, no, it's not. It's a show with rugby players who've used the sport to achieve incredible things in their lives and tell these incredible stories to us. And today's guest is a perfect case in point. He is one of the finest players to ever have played the game, certainly in the gold shirt of Australia. He won 83 caps over 11 years and just lauded right across the world for changing the way the game is played in his particular position in the back row. That's the rugby stuff. How about the life stuff? Well, rugby has kind of inspired him and helped him, I guess, to achieve his real passions. He had to leave his country of birth, Zimbabwe, as a young man and has become a leading activist on social justice and on the environment. He is and always has been in the thick of those battles, even when I guess the easier option was not to be. I'm delighted to welcome to the Contact Book Australia's David Pocock. David, how are you?
Hey, Craig. I'm really well, thanks. Thanks for having me on this. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, well, it's it can be a little bit frightening because you don't know what people are going to say about you. This isn't all, we have an idea who we're going to talk to. We don't know what they're going to say about you, David. So, if anyone has any grudges, particularly family members, this can be an interesting couple of hours for you.
Yeah, I'm sure something will come up, but it'll be good to have a chat to some people anyway.
I'm wondering, David, what it was like on a day-to-day basis as a young man in Zimbabwe, because it just sounds like the perfect, most romantic upbringing for any child. What was it like there?
Yeah, in hindsight, pretty privileged. Growing up on a farm, we went to school in town, but because my parents had both been to boarding school from, I think, the age of 5 or 6, they would determine we wouldn't board. So my mum would kind of drive us into town every morning and, got to spend a lot of time in nature, sort of walking around the farm. Really got into sort of bird watching, got a bit obsessed with birds. We did a fair bit of hunting too, so there was always so much to do. And I guess having 2 younger brothers, we really made our own fun, playing rugby in the backyard or catching sheep or whatever it might have been on that day.
And explain to people listening, David, how things changed so dramatically. So there was a lot of white farmers running the land there, big, huge farms, incomprehensible the sizes of some of them. I don't know how big your parents' one was. But then there was the shift, there was a political shift, and there was a repatriation of land. And I mean, you had no say in it. It was just, that was it, done deal, land taken from you and you had to move on. Is that the way it was for people there?
I guess it was pretty complex, but basically what happened was that the Mugabe government started to lose popularity. A opposition party was started and the government then kind of used land as a way to get more votes and use white farmers and also black farmers who didn't support the government as a scapegoat and started to evict people from their farms, sometimes forcibly, and essentially just resettle people on that land. And given the history of colonialism in that part of the world, land reform was something that had to happen at some point, and the government had kind of kept putting it off and ended up going about it in a way that totally destroyed the agriculture industry. You had a huge loss of knowledge. There was very little transfer onto people who had been given farms. Farming is the kind of thing, it's intergenerational knowledge that's passed down and nurtured. And there was really none of that knowledge transfer happening. So, that then spun the economy out. There was some civil unrest around the country. Things got pretty hairy for most Zimbabweans. Times got tough and unfortunately we've kind of seen the effect of that continue over the last couple of decades with kind of ongoing rumblings of economic and difficulties and social unrest.
I think it might be a good time to bring in a family member to get a sense of what it was like in that big move. So your brother Mike, I'm sure he's going to be very, very kind to you. Let's give Mike a call. So how many were you in total? How many brothers and sisters do you have?
2 younger brothers.
2 younger brothers. All right.
Mike speaking.
Hiya, Mike. It's Craig Doyle here on the Contact Book. I've got your older brother, David, on. We're just chatting about life in Zimbabwe. How he said it's time to get the younger brother on. He said you're the wild one. And we got to keep an eye on you.
Hey, Mikey.
I think I'm the tame one. Hey, Dave.
Mike, we're just talking about, he was describing what seemed to be like a fairly idyllic life in Zimbabwe for you guys as young fellas on your parents' farm, and then the shock of, I guess, learning that you had to move. And I'm just thinking how difficult it must be, because your parents, I'm sure, put on a really brave face, but it must have really torn them apart. Can you remember that time? You were a little bit younger. Do you remember it?
Yeah, I remember it pretty clearly. It was a pretty great life up until the last couple of years that we lived there, and then just kind of remember it being feels pretty unsafe and not super enjoyable. And then we ended up moving over to Australia.
So what was it like having an older brother like David there? This already, I believe, as a young fella, a tackling physical machine. What was he like back then?
I was the next one along, so I was kind of. We've got home videos of me in like a little jolly jumper thing, and Dave, I was probably only a year old, and I'm almost touching the ceiling every time Dave launches me in the thing. So I think you grow up pretty tough having Dave as an older brother. But no, it was great fun, and always someone to play carpet rugby and kick balls in the backyard, and it was a lot of fun.
You were basically a tackle bag, were you?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Mike, talk to us about David as a young fellow when it comes to sport. Did he always have a talent for it? Was he always a little bit different to everyone else?
Yeah, I think remembering back to, I don't know, it would have been grade 3 or 4. All the mums complained in the opposition teams and said he's no longer allowed to play against our kids, so we had to go and play upper grade. Just stuff like that. Like, it was from a very, very young age. He was always bigger and better and kind of had the drive to be a sportsman, which worked out pretty well for him.
Something we have talked a bit about, Mike, is when we moved to Australia, I guess we all dealt with everything in Zim in different ways, and for me sport was kind of my outlet, and I got pretty obsessed about it. And I think it was on that Australian story you said that I was a bit of a dick to be around. So looking back now, I can definitely see that the toll that had on the family, having someone who was just kind of all about me and my sport and probably wasn't thinking about a lot else.
Well, I think one of the best examples would be when we went on a small little yacht on the Great Barrier Reef. Dave, it would have been grade 10 or would have been 15, 16. He refused to come unless we took a bench press and a set of dumbbells and a curl bar. So we were lugging this bench press and like 100 kilos of weights down the public jetty, and everyone just looking at us going, "What are you doing? Like, we're going snorkelling for a week, and here we are with the bench press and a."
Oh man!
Yeah, like that's
crazy.
I hope you're embarrassed, Dave. I hope you're embarrassed.
Oh man, I'm so sorry, Mike.
What was it like to see him not just represent Australia, but captain Australia, Mike, for the first time? You must have been so proud.
Yeah, it's been quite a journey, I think, the family going through, and especially because he's kind of, I don't know, just such a normal guy off the field. Like, a lot of my friends and kind of people I know go, "Oh, he must be like this superstar that all he ever does is talk about rugby and do rugby." And I kind of say, well, I don't think I've talked about rugby much at all when we're around him. It's always very much, that's kind of his job, and he goes and does his job, and he's very good at his job, and then comes away and he's just a normal brother, which is, I think, one of the highlights of being around the last kind of 10, 15 years.
What's it like having a brother with a rig like that when you're on holidays? I mean, I wouldn't own shirts if
it's
I
pretty annoying.
Like that.
Yeah, it's pretty annoying. Certainly get a lot of looks. You can always be pretty happy that that no one's looking at you, so you don't really have to worry too much.
Mike, it's so good. It's so good talking to you. Thanks for joining us, and thanks for giving us a little insight into what life was like back then. Good talking to you. Take care of yourself.
All good. Thanks for
Mike.
that. See you.
Love you lots. Bye.
See you there. Bye.
He was good. I mean, my brother would tear me apart if I put him on. I mean, did you pay him off?
I'm sending him a case of beers.
It's interesting, even when Mike talks about it as well, there seems to be very little resentment about what happened in Zimbabwe. I mean, you've got this perfect life, there's the land reform, you have to leave, you got to go to a new country. You don't seem kind of angry about it. In fact, you seem quite sad about it, and you want to help people in Zimbabwe after what's happened. It's probably a rare trait, I'd have to say, David. I think a lot of people would have a lot of animosity.
Looking back, it's easy to get nostalgic and kind of talk about how great it was. But, the realities of farming, often pretty stressful. It's hard work. Finances were often pretty tough. So I guess as kids, we had it great. Like, we got to grow up on a farm. For my parents, things were very stressful. Then you add all the political stuff. And I think it was a pretty difficult thing to do. In terms of being bitter about it, I guess one of the things I've thought about and we've talked about as a family is that it's very easy to kind of come away thinking that you're the victim, but the reality is in somewhere like Zimbabwe, everyone's a victim in some way. There was colonialism with a lot of wrongs done there, and then we were victims losing our farm, which we bought after independence. But it really doesn't help anyone to carry that bitterness, and it can certainly eat away at you. I've seen family members who have become bitter, and it really gnaws away at you and kind of steals a lot of life. So I think I'm probably grateful for my parents for the way they've sort of tried to deal with it and talk about it and sort of try and make some meaning out of it and really make the most of the opportunity that we do have. Like, I arrived in Australia with, such a sense of, I guess, gratitude for the opportunity, and also, a little bit of guilt knowing that so many of my classmates, didn't have the opportunity to move. So really determined as a teenager to try and make the most of it.
We're going to talk a little bit later about how you've used that experience to kind of trying to help out over there, which is really admirable. But I want to talk to somebody, because as you said, so many people did have to move at the same time. One of them was a family friend of yours by the name of Simon Goff, who I've heard you talk about before. Simon's a teacher and a rugby coach as well. So I think it's time I want to know what they spotted in you. Let's give Simon a buzz. I guess Simon was one of the first to kind of really believe in you that you should take rugby quite seriously, was he?
Yeah, Simon played a huge role in my life. He was my grade 5 teacher, and it was just such a sort of high energy, really inclusive person. Like, he would ensure that the whole group was getting into whatever we were doing as a class. And I think he really helped foster a sense of enjoyment and wanting to be part of a team and contribute, apart from just going out there to win, but also having fun along the way.
So Simon was a rugby coach in Zimbabwe, but he moved over to Australia as well, did he?
He's in the UK.
Oh, he's in the UK. Oh, so he moved from Zimbabwe to the UK. Oh,
yeah,
wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sure he's probably got some sort of accent. We'll find out.
Oh, shall we? Let's find out. Let's give Simon a buzz there. So, should we give him a wee call now? There we go.
Hello.
Simon, how are you? Craig Doyle here on the Contact Book. I've your old pal David Pocock on the line with me. How are you keeping?
Yeah, I'm all right. Good.
So, Simon, I now have to refer to you as Mr. Goff, because you are a teacher and former coach. So I want to go back to in Zimbabwe before you also had to make the move out of Zimbabwe. And what did you spot in David as a player, as a potential international rugby player? What did he have?
The thing that was always obvious is David is passionate. He was passionate about rugby. He threw everything into it. He wanted it. He was always carrying a ball around. He was always talking about rugby. But then, when he was playing, he took everything on board. If you said this is how you should do a tackle, then you would do it. I've coached rugby for many years, and there's kids who think about doing it but don't. David wasn't one of those. He would just do whatever you said. Take his legs out, run for that gap. That's what he was like the whole time.
And I believe he was competitive in absolutely everything he did.
Oh, yeah.
Not just on the rugby field.
No, there was things that he did. I remember swimming. He was in a very strong year group for swimming, and quite a few national swimmers, and he didn't want to be left out of that. So I think he joined the club and set about trying to get his name amongst the lights in swimming, and he did.
Oh man, I used to hate swimming training. It was the worst. Yeah.
He was this big chunk of a lad. He had power, but he didn't have a lot of style. He just used to pull himself through the water.
Fair enough.
And a good baker too, I believe.
Well, yeah, that was the other thing I was going to say is I think it was baking and needlework. We used to have a Gueru show in the town we lived, and people could enter stuff in. It was mostly moms and, but Dave came in the one day and he had the certificate for having baked a first prize cake. I don't know whether he made some jam or he did some needlework. He might know better, but
I think it was just the cake.
was it? Yeah, I do remember that though.
I think it was like a lemon sponge cake, and I try and claim that whenever I can with my partner Emma, because she's an amazing cook and baker, and I'm still kind of dining out on a grade 5 Gweru show certificate. Yeah. It was good fun.
It's that kind of passion, though, isn't it, Mr. Gough? It's that kind of passion, If you have it in rugby, you have it in every facet of your life. And as David's proven, he has it in his activism. You have it, brave enough to vocalize all his beliefs. It's just in him, isn't it?
Yeah. It's infectious. That was the thing, It was infectious with Dave. I was an adult teacher, but it was hard to be around him without being, influenced by how keen he was for everything. So it's been brilliant to see how he's, put that into practice and everything, and it's got him a long way. It's a good, what would you call it, role model.
That's brilliant. Simon, thanks so much.
I was just saying to Craig before we called up, and kind of wanted to thank you for how big a role you played in not just my rugby, but I remember back to grade 5. Simon was my teacher in grade 5, with so many fond memories. Like just the level of like fun that you brought to it, and yeah, I think you really kind of showed me what it was to really be part of a team and kind of want to contribute to the people around me. I've got so many fond memories from there. I just wanted to, really thank you.
I appreciate that. And I think I suppose I thank you guys, because you guys were a brilliant year group to start my teaching career with, and it was exciting. The whole idea was we had fun. That was my first year of teaching. We did 26 field trips. I don't know that we were ever in the classroom. We had a standing.
No, I remember a lot of outdoor.
Yeah.
Look, Simon, thanks so much for sharing these stories with us. Really lovely. Lovely for David too.
Yeah.
Sure.
It's been a pleasure.
Take care of yourself. Thanks for your time.
Thanks so much, Simon.
Yeah, cheers. All the best.
Thanks,
Bye.
Simon. Bye. So I want to talk about you as a schoolboy rugby player, and the lure of playing in the goal of Australia was sitting there. You were in the system, and there was another young fella sitting alongside you by the name of Kurtley Beale, who every rugby fan in the world knows, because Kurtley Beale's such a stunning rugby player. And I think we should give Kurtley a buzz, because there's nothing better than a teammate, a former teammate at junior level, to tell the real truth about you. So let's give Kurtley Beale a buzz. Kurtley,
this could go anywhere.
I know. That's why we wanted him. So Kurtley's in Paris at the moment, isn't he?
Hello.
Bonjour, Kurtley. Comment ça va?
Bonjour, ça va.
It's Craig Doyle here, Kurtley, on the contact. Well, lovely to speak to you again. It's been a while. How are you keeping? I have your old pal, David Pocock, on the phone here, live from Australia.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it's your job as his old teammate.
The deadly Bradley.
KB, how are you?
How are you, brother? Good to hear from you.
You too. How things going in France?
Mate, really enjoying it here. They're great to play a bit of rugby in a different country and learn a bit of a different culture, and really enjoying my time here at the moment.
Learning a bit of French?
Yeah, a little bit. Like, we've got 3 lessons per week, so we're just trying to nut away. And
very nice.
Yeah, it's kind of slowly growing on me, which is good.
Is Simon Zebo teaching any French there, Kurtley, no?
Surprisingly, he's pretty amazing. He's actually one of the good foreigners that can speak French. So, definitely get a few tips off him every now and then. Although his Irish is very hard to understand at times as well. Him and Finn Russell combined with their Scottish and Irish accents can be quite difficult to understand at times.
Well, Finn Russell, at the best of times, is impossible to understand. My word. Come here to me. Let's go back to when you guys you played rugby from the age of 16 you first met up? What was it like when you first met?
Yeah, 16, 17. Dave obviously was this huge behemoth of a lad. I was only a skinny rake back then with the skinny crew legs, and he was one of the best talents in the tournament, and one of the best players obviously, and he's turned out to be a GOAT in my eyes. So it was actually great to build a really good friendship with Dave on the field. Always showed his heart, and was always led by example, and continued that throughout his whole career. And I still think he's got a few years in him yet, but he's obviously decided to retire. But I wish him all the best for that.
KB, I remember the first time we played against each other would have been, I think, that under-16 tournament, and because you had such a big reputation, like the refs were just kind of looking after you, and I think it was Lungy.
That's a lie. Bullshit. That's bullshit.
100%. You were like protected game, like no one could touch you. But yeah, I was pretty stoked the next year to sort of link up and play Australian schoolboys together. So lots of Yeah,
No,
lots
actually,
of
I
fun
remember the game.
memories.
I remember that game, Dave. I remember that game. So Lungy said to, I remember I was kicking for touch and he kind of shot out of line. It was a bent arm penalty or whatnot. And when you quickly tap the ball, you got to quickly take the kick for touch. And he kind of shot out of line. I'm like, geez, I've got to rush his kick. And all of a sudden I've kicked it. And then I'm like, he's hit me mid-air, flipped me. I think he got a yellow card or whatnot. But
Yeah, he got yellow
he got let off that one. Yeah. Or something like that. But yeah, I actually quite remember those times. You boys had QC and Will Ganya. You guys had a great team back then.
Amazing
Yeah, it's good
names,
fun.
my word. When you think back, whew, so many brilliant young players came through there. But well, I mean, anyone we speak to, especially from even when he was a little kiddie, Kurtley say that it was David's tackle technique that just kind of shocked them. They was just an absolute animal in the tackle.
Absolutely. I think one of the best attributes in his game was is definitely his defence and his breakdown work. A lot of guys, he used to kind of teach guys throughout the week, different kind of ways to kind of get the ball. And in defence, he kind of led by example. Whenever he put on a big shot, he kind of lifted up the team. And consistently, week in, week out, year by year, he kind of led in that front and really became, one of the greats of the game on that front of the game. So, it's actually an honour to be a part of it, to play alongside such a, wonderful player and one of the geniuses of the game.
But a pretty good human being as well, Kurtley, and all the social activism and the environmental
I don't know about
activism. Well, that's why I want to hear the bad side of it. I mean, it can't all be good, Kurtley. It can't all be good, surely.
That's the thing with Dave. I think he was just so level-headed the whole time. He's one of the most humble persons you'll ever meet, and always had that respect and real interest in a person. And I think over the years, that's why a lot of people gravitated to him. And I think off the field, he had his own interests as we kind of go into, we mature and we grow up. And I think because he was just so true to who he was as a person and stuck and always represented his beliefs, I think people kind of respected him for that. And I think, good on him for doing that. And I think he's grown a lot of support. And I think that's why he's one of the most, respected players, on and off the field. A lot of other people in his position in that front would kind of probably change their beliefs or kind of go in a different angle. But with Dave, he's that guy that always stayed true to his character and just stuck with it. And I think that's where he gets a lot of respect and a lot of love from.
Thanks, Brad. That's nice of you to say.
Yeah, enjoy it, David, because next time he sees you, he's going to be ripping you apart again. So enjoy.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. Mate, just one thing quickly. I don't think I've ever asked you about this, but I've been kind of had a bit of time to reflect. And one of the things I was thinking about last year was one of the most satisfying wins was that game in Bloemfontein where we beat the Springboks. And it was, the first time in the high felt for a long time.
Yeah.
You nailed that kick. I've never asked you about that. Like, I don't know, what's going through your mind when you're sort of lining that up? And the whole team's been putting in and now you have the chance.
I remember beforehand, maybe 5 minutes before, I got a falcon from Quaid. So ball missed the catch, hit me straight in the head, reflect to Brian Habana.
That falcon.
Brian Habana's hands, and I think, the falcon. So I think they scored off that in the corner, and I think that put them maybe 2 points in front. So it had to come down to my kick to win us the game, and I always had that in the back of my mind to kind of redeem myself. But, mate, I was practicing so many times throughout the weeks leading up to that game, a long-distance kicking, and you always just got to go back to what you know, is just practice your techniques, you stay true to your own practice. And, if you put 100% in your practice, you're always going to get the result in the game. So I was always trying to focus on that. And that's what I was thinking. And I just backed myself, brother, like you always do. We always back each other. And you nailed it. Hopefully the hard work pays off. Yeah. So
I remember that night we were staying at that hotel that's kind of next to the zoo in Bloemfontein, just sitting around the fire, having a beer. Like it was. That's right. It was so satisfying.
It was special. Really Dingo's birthday, I think, as well. But we had such a great crew, good balance of senior and younger players coming through. So definitely one of the great sides I've been lucky to be a part of. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Boys, I've got to wrap it up. Hey, sorry, I'm literally in the room here.
All
the
good.
Frenchies are going wild here.
I can hear the training going on behind you, but it is.
Thanks so much, KB.
Great. Love you, brother. And keep doing you.
Catch up
all
soon.
the best, man. Good to speak to you. Cheerio.
Bye.
Bye. We're going to fast forward to Australia and to your international career, your unbelievable international career. Who gave you your first cap? Was it Robbie Deane?
Robbie Deane's. Yep.
Robbie Deane's gave you your first cap. I think we should call
2008.
Let's call Robbie Deane's. So Robbie Deane's was Australia 2008, 2013. Let's give him a call.
Good luck getting hold of him.
Japan at the moment, right? He's in Japan, right? He's with the Wild Knights still, right?
Yeah.
Okay, well, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't even know what time of day it is there. We're been all around the world, haven't we, today? This has been good.
Hello.
Hiya, Robbie. It's Craig Doyle here on the
Yeah.
contact book. Yeah, I'm here. I've got David Pocock with me. How are you?
Very good, thank you.
We should explain to everyone where you are at the moment, Robbie.
Sure, I'm in Japan. It's 7 o'clock at night here.
Well, we're just about to start talking, Robbie, about his international career, and you were the one who gave him his big break, his first cap. I mean, he was a young guy. What did you see in him? Why did you feel he was ready for it?
He gave himself the break, really. He was clearly ready for it at a very young age, totally equipped. The fixture was against South Africa in Brisbane, and South Africa at that point were the incumbent world champions. They won the Tri-Nations that year. They only dropped one game, which turned out to be this fixture, Poey's debut, and David was a big contributor. In fact, became a bit of a nemesis for South Africa. I think we won the game about 20-6, and they won that Tri-Nations that year without dropping any other games. They beat New Zealand twice in New Zealand, which they hadn't done previously. But Poey just showed what a remarkable capacity he had to stop the game, and he continued to do that to them on many occasions, the quarter in Wellington being the next obvious example. But yeah, it was an outstanding debut. He played, we shifted George Smith to number 8, I think, on the day. He was captain at the time, but it was a very potent combination, and one that unfortunately we weren't to see a lot more of. The last time was the end of that year in Wales. Eddie,
I think that was also Willie Genya's run-on debut.
Yes,
correct. That game in Brisbane. Yep. Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
The whole young brigade, as you know, Poey that was introduced that year, Willie, Quaid, James O'Connor, Kurtley. So it was an exciting bunch. You were never included in the Musketeers. I'm not sure why. But you could probably explain that.
Yeah, I think you should. David.
I grow a terrible moustache, so I think that ruled me out.
Yeah. There was a lot of showbiz. There was a lot of showbiz in that team, Robbie, wasn't there? There was a lot of showbiz in it.
It was next generation, At the end of the World Cup cycle, it happens a lot these days. 2007, a lot of great servants of Australian rugby departed. Sterling Mortlock was still hanging on, I think, at that point. Maybe he missed that tour, might have been his last year. But the likes of Stephen Larkham, George Gregan, Matthew Burke, there's an army of them who left. So we had a new generation. And to be fair, they had, it was a pretty successful few years, but it had its challenges. But I guess in hindsight, when we look back now, I think we're second in the world for 3 years running there. So it was probably, when you look at it now in the cold light of day, that generation did pretty well.
Why was he your captain, Robbie?
Interesting you asked that, because this is one of for me, the great disappointments with Poey's career. I mean, he achieved a lot. Just recently named in the World Team of the Decade, basically from out of position, which shows the manner and respect he had internationally. But the one box that I was so looking forward to, and I'm sure David was as well, but he was denied just through misfortune, probably through injury. We got him started in leadership in 2012. The first game was probably a bit of a hospital pass. We played Scotland and Newcastle, and it was really an Australian 15, because 3 out of the 5 Super Rugby franchises played on Saturday, and we played a test match on Tuesday. So it was basically selected from 2/5 of Australia and limited preparation. And then the weather rolled in. It was a remarkable day, unprecedented, never seen before or since. And I think you ended up with pneumonia, didn't you, Poey? You needed treatment for pneumonia after that fixture. So it was a tough.
Got a bit hypothermic, yeah.
Whoa, you actually got hypothermic in the game. You got hypothermia.
No, afterwards, just in the cool down. Yeah,
this is in Australia, so it's.
Whoa, that's ridiculous. I've never heard of that.
What happened after that really, for me, highlighted the potential and what I think could have been a significant moment in Australian rugby. Poey went on to captain against the Welsh Grand Slam team that came down, and we beat them 3-0. But Poey was really just getting started as a captain, and I think we got an insight through that series as to his potential. I recall the first test on the bus post the captain's run, just went round and spoke quietly to each of the new blokes in the group just to check on them. Defining moment in the second test, he opted for a line-out maul, which drew a penalty, and Mike Harris had to kick the goal at the death. And not many know the story, I think, but Poey went up to him and basically put his arm around him and said, "Don't worry, mate, we'll still love you if you miss." It just showed, for me, the depth of the man and the potential, but then injuries interrupted. I think he had back-to-back ACLs, and that moment passed and never really came back again. Is that fair, Poey? You might have done the odd game after that, but
that was pretty much it, Robbie.
Yeah.
The thing that in my mind, really sets Robbie aside is he genuinely wants people to become better men, and that seems to be his focus. And I've certainly learnt a huge amount over the years from you, Robbie, and have really enjoyed our time together.
Oh, likewise, mate. That's very kind, but you're very easy. You've always, had interests beyond the game, and I think that's such an important thing, particularly in this era of professionalism. Ironically, I think Japan are actually ahead of the game to that end.
Yeah.
The programs here capture an element of the amateur, because half the group still have a day job and the other half are professionals. But it's a great earthing mechanism for the professionals to have to work with amateurs. Now, you're a great role model for them. A lot of professionals don't cope when it gets difficult, because if they don't have an interest, they just go from playing to the couch. And when the tide starts going out, without something to stimulate their minds and something that gives them an esteem beyond rugby, it can be challenging. I recall you last year here, the boy, after one tough game, most of the boys, just spent Sunday recovering. You climbed the mountain and took some pictures of a rare breed of monkeys here, where most professionals just concentrate on physical recovery the day after. You had interests, and it really fascinated the local lads here. But it's a great example of what's possible and the importance of a balance in life.
No, it's very
there were so many great things to see around Ota. So yeah,
that was at the Wild Nights. That's Wild Nights with a K, by the way.
Correct.
Yeah, but I mean, for both of you and all you've achieved in your careers, both of you, to finish up there is really fascinating. It's brilliant because we know so little about Japanese club rugby. What is life like there?
I mean, Robbie's been over there for a lot longer than I have. He was kind of alluding to how almost all professional players in Japan have already done some sort of university degree or training, and then they become professional. That's starting to change now with a few guys coming straight out of school. But generally everyone's got some sort of degree, some sort of interest and background, and then you do have this part of the squad that is still that they're training just as much as everyone else, but then they've got to turn up and go and do a day job during the day. So it's certainly a different element, and I kind of felt it embodies so much of what rugby should be. You train hard, you prepare well, everyone plays hard, but it doesn't have that sort of, I don't know, kind of overbearing seriousness of Super Rugby where you feel like you're playing for sheep stations every week. And I think that allows players to express themselves more.
Absolutely. And that was great for you to have that opportunity, because your game's a lot broader than what people give you credit for on the international scene. You could use the offloads, etc. We saw that side of you here with the freedom of expression. But the other thing that Ryan Crotty alluded to after we played against his team last year, having played against us, he said, crikey, it was like playing against the Barbarians. And he's right when I thought about it. That element is here. So in your last season, David, you had in your team, you had Sam Whitelock, you had Damien Diolande, and you get to play with people that you've played against at international level. And as you say, you're playing for sheep stations. There's not a lot of love in it, and there's not a lot of interaction. And that's one of the risks with professionalism, is that playing for the right reasons is gone. And that's where Barbarians for me are the ultimate, as long as they get the balance right.
And they don't go out drinking the day before the game. Yeah.
Correct. And break curfews. But that's a superb element that is here, and long may that last, because we must always remember what the game was designed for, and it is unique rugby, and of all the codes, it's something that is unique to rugby.
Robbie Deane's really wise words from you at the end there, and I'd expect nothing less than that from you. Thank you so much. You're something of an oracle in rugby. I've always looked up to you personally as well, so it's great to talk to you, and thank you so much for your time. Take care of yourself. All the best, Robbie.
No trouble at all.
Thanks, Robbie. Thank
you.
Cheers,
Dave.
Bye.
Interesting talking to you today, David. You're a softly spoken guy. You're a very passionate, softly spoken guy. You don't seem entirely comfortable talking about the good things you've done. You're quite a humble guy. And that brings me to kind of activism, which also often requires a very loud, strong voice in it, and how you've taken to activism. I have a quote here, which I thought was interesting, something you said. I'm introverted. Speaking up is a big deal for me. Speaking up has not always been easy. At times, I was pretty down about it afterwards. Speaking up has made me grow up as a person. Still find it difficult to talk publicly, and I have to live with those choices. Explain that to me.
Well, I think there's a big part of me that would prefer to just fly under the radar and not have taken a stand on different things that I think are important. I guess probably my late teens, early 20s, I got pretty obsessed reading about social change and kind of reading about Gandhi, Martin Luther King, Dorothy Day, all of these people that we kind of hold up as, in some way almost sort of superhuman, and we kind of put them on a pedestal. But the more you read about them, the more you realize just how ordinary and deeply flawed, like all of us, they were. So I guess it really got me thinking about this idea of moral courage. Like, what is the difference between someone who professes certain things and would like to see things change, and other people who we kind of see actually doing things and putting their money where their mouth is, so to speak. And so I think that that probably played a big role in wanting to use whatever platform I had to actually talk about things that I thought were really important.
There was a moment in your career, I think it was a Super Rugby game, and this, it just encapsulates your attitude to me, because it seemed like such a natural thing for you to do. I don't think you thought it out, but the impact was massive. I mean, it's over in Europe, everyone was talking about it, because your voice was being used in such a brilliant way. But it was during a game, and you basically, in a stoppage in the game, you turned around to the ref and you said, "Can you just keep an ear out for the homophobic abuse, please, ref?" And what I liked about that is it obviously upset you so much you had to say something, and it just came out quite naturally. What I liked about it was afterwards you didn't really want to be interviewed about it or talk about it, because it was just a statement you had to make at the time. It was never about you. It was about a situation that disgusted you. I really looked up to you for that. I thought it was a very brave, strong thing to do.
Thanks, Craig. I mean, that one was really a sort of a team thing. There were a number of players who'd brought it up with the ref, and I think when I asked about it, my audio was maybe just picked up the clearest and was kind of pinned on me. But it was something that the Brumbies had been talking about, is how do we create a more inclusive environment as a club? Because if you look at, statistically, there's definitely gay players playing professional rugby. There certainly aren't a lot of openly gay players in professional rugby. So, there's obviously something that needs to change there for people to feel like they can be who they are and be really more comfortable being themselves around teammates. And, and that's not up to players who are gay to kind of be the ones who have to be the champion and kind of take that. It should be on everyone else to actually create an environment where that's not a big deal. So it was really something that had come out of discussions at the club that we've been having as players. And when it was kind of heard in the game, a number of players brought it up, and, it actually turned into a really great teaching moment. I think luckily this was kind of before cancel culture became a thing. And Jacques Potgieter, to his great credit, owned up, I guess, and talked about the way that we as a culture have been using homophobic slurs, just to put people down, put people in their place. And, I think it was really about education and led to some great conversations. He ended up going and doing a bit of coaching at the Sydney Convicts, who are a gay rugby team in Sydney. And, I think everyone learnt from it. So, you'd hope that as societies, we can actually use those sorts of moments to have some constructive conversations, take ownership and actually move forward better, kind of come out of it with a better understanding of each other and what it's going to take to make things better for everyone in a community and in a society.
I guess similarly with Israel Folau's comments, that start, as disgusting as personally I found them and many did, it did start a conversation, allowed us certainly as broadcasters to say, we don't believe it's okay to say this. And you've got to make your own mind up, but we're putting that out there that this is wrong. Big moments do start conversations that have to be had, don't they?
Yeah, they do. I mean, I've talked about the Israel stuff before. We obviously disagree personally and publicly about this. And I think what he said is very damaging to a lot of young people, particularly young people who are grappling with their sexuality, having grown up in religious homes. Having said that, one of the great things about rugby is that you are in many ways, forced to spend a lot of time with a group of people that you don't necessarily choose to spend time with, and you get to know them, and it's very hard to hate someone up close. Like when you actually get to know someone, you start to see the humanity in them and just how much you share with them. And I guess we've all got that family member who we probably strongly disagree with on a number of things and can get into some pretty heated discussions about it, but we still recognize that they're human and they want a lot of the same things we want. So yeah, it was really disappointing. And I think after a lot of the work that Rugby Australia had been doing around really leading in Australia on having an inclusion policy and trying to make the whole game as a whole inclusive, it was a big blow. But I think the tide has turned on this issue in society, and we're hopefully going to become more and more inclusive.
I want to talk to you about your passions for the environment. And this is another story. This was amazing because, again, you hit the front pages right across the world with this one. And it's when you got arrested for chaining yourself to machinery to stop a coal mine in Laird State Forest in New South Wales. You wanted to prevent the destruction of one of the last remaining grassy box woodlands. And this was big worldwide news. And it was alongside a gentleman by the name of Rick Laird, an environmentalist. I think we should give Rick a call, actually, if you don't mind.
Yeah, cool.
Have you spoken to him recently?
Would have been late last year, I think.
Okay, let's give Rick a call. What's he doing these days, Rick?
Hello.
He's still on the farm. Oh, there we go.
Hiya, Rick. It's Craig Doyle here. I'm on the contact book with David Pocock at the moment, and we're just talking about we're talking about the infamous incident in New South Wales all those years ago.
Hey, Rick.
How are you, Dave?
How you going? I'm well.
Not too bad, thanks, mate.
Rick, tell us the story of yourself and David and just your friendship and your shared passion for the environment and the trouble it got you both in.
Yeah, righto. Well, the thing was, when I first met Dave was when he came up to have a look at this mine, and I'd been in this campaign against it for a few years now.
What were you trying to prevent, Rick? There was this grassy box woodland and it was about to be developed, or what was about to happen? What were you trying to stop?
Well, we were trying to stop a lot of things. There was cultural and heritage stuff with the Gomeroi people up there as well. We were very good friends with them. There was also, we had a lot of trouble with the water table since the mine began, and we knew this was going to be a problem. No one was sort of willing to do anything that much because we thought it would be yesterday's news. And I took the opportunity when Dave came along, and I thought, this is probably the perfect chance to get some airplay, Sydney and places like that.
So what made you get involved, David?
Yeah, it's just madness to be building coal mines at this point in time in prime agriculture areas and, in state forests that have critically endangered woodland in them. So kind of went up just wanting to show my support, and then met Rick. And when you see the challenges that farmers in Australia are facing just on the day-to-day kind of getting by, something like this is screwing farmers, twice. It's the impact of living next to a coal mine, which, I'm sure Rick could go into, visiting. You're just confronted with these massive piles of overburden not far from the farm boundary, noise pollution, dust, all the other stuff, issues with water. But then there's obviously the climate change angle as well. And Australia has been dragging its feet and sort of sabotaging global efforts to address this issue. So it kind of got to the point where I felt like this was something that I wanted to do, and it was a pretty long day on top of that digger.
So that's it, Rick. The chains came out, the locks came out. What happened next?
We hiked in there about midnight. We sort of got going in there and eventually got to the digger, and this is about 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. And anyway, we ended up pouncing on a bloke that was supposed to be looking after it, and he quickly moved to the side when he saw us coming at him, and we ended up on top, roughly tied to a digger. We didn't have real good equipment, but that didn't seem to make much difference to the police or anything like that. They probably could have wrestled us off pretty fast. But anyway, we had a good time up there, actually. We had a long time to discuss our lives. It took nearly all day until they got there. They had to come from Bathurst, which is a long way away, to cut us off. Anyway, it was a good thing to get off my chest, actually. When I got back, everybody was shaking me hand, going, geez, someone should have done this a long time ago. It should have come out. It got in the media, but we needed Dave to get us there.
You got arrested, though. I mean, you were arrested. You were chucked in the back of police cars, lads?
No, man, that was, yeah. I just remember it being stinking hot in the back of the wagon, and it like being pretty rough, and there's just nowhere to hold on to.
Yeah, it was pretty rough, all right, and hot.
Yeah, a pretty bizarre experience, and we kind of got processed at around midnight, and I jumped in the car and we sort of drove overnight to Canberra so I could be at training on Monday morning. But the mine went ahead, and Rick and other farmers are now feeling the the ongoing effects of trying to farm next to a coal mine.
Oh, and how has that played out, Rick? How's it affected your life?
Oh, well, we've had a lot of dust. I've been fumigated by one of the mines, which is not that one. It was one next to it with nitrous oxides. We've had a lot of health issues. You get a bit chesty with all this dust.
Oh, well, look, Rick, I'm sorry it's still trouble in your life, and keep fighting the good fight. And thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate it. Take care of yourself.
Cheers, Rick.
Okay, you too. Thanks, Craig, and
Cheers.
Thanks, Dave. I'll talk to you later, mate.
I'm wondering what your rugby coach said to you when you arrived a little bit tired and you told him you were arrested, but not for drinking or fighting, which he was probably used to. I mean, like, who's this guy?
Well, yeah, Stephen Larkin was the coach at the time, and I guess it had already been in the news and all the rest. I think I turned up and had a few coffees and trained fairly well, so didn't feel like I'd let the team down in that regard. I guess, one of the hard things in a team sport when you do something like that that's kind of very individual is that your teammates end up having to answer a lot of questions. And I wasn't really allowed to do much media afterwards. So, every press conference, my teammates are getting asked about this lunatic Pocock and what's he up to and is he all there? So, I felt bad about that. But, it certainly felt like something that, I'd been signing all the petitions and going to all the marches and rallies and all the rest. And Australia really is shirking our responsibility when it comes to facing climate change and starting to act in a more meaningful way.
Have you thought about going into politics seriously, David? I mean, makings of a future Australian Prime Minister, surely.
I've thought about it. I mean, I think it's so important. It's a lot of young people, maybe rightly so, pretty disillusioned with a lot of our leaders at the moment. And I really think that needs to change. And I think it will change as more young people get into politics and want to try and, tell a better story and actually create the future that we all want. But it's, at the moment, it's kind of being co-opted by vested interests and we certainly need some changes. But it's definitely not on the horizon for me. There's plenty of other things that I sort of finding interesting and have been working on and really feel like I'd like to kind of get out there and get some real world experience, which I think is a prerequisite for a politician.
You've had more real world experience than a lot of politicians I know. If I was in a position to vote for you or second your nomination, I certainly would. I think you'd be perfect for the job, certainly in some level of higher echelons of politics.
Thanks, Craig. We'll have to try and get you an Australian citizenship. But I mean,
I'm looking at the rain and snow here. I take it tomorrow, I tell you that. I want to finish up with where it all began. I want to go back to Zimbabwe because we spoke about it earlier that your passion and your love of the country remains clearly and you want to help out there. You did find you had the 1820 Vision charity, and that's been taken over a bigger charity now. But you are involved with the HEFO, the Health Education Food Organisation. It's a non-government organisation in Zimbabwe, and you're doing great work with them at the moment. I want to call up someone from the charity, if you don't mind. Anane Ncube. Tell us about Anane Ncube.
Anane Ncube is
you say it far better than I do.
founder of HEFO, who we partnered with HEFO from 2009 to 15, 16, and then sort of handed over our contribution to another charity here, a bigger charity here in Australia. But just an amazing man who I've learnt so much from. And he's been really inspirational to me.
Why don't we give him a call? Let's give him a call. Let's
Okay.
Let's give him a call there. That's a phone ring we haven't heard yet today. We've been all around the world.
Zimbabwe.
Hello. Hi, how are you? It's Craig Doyle here on the contact book. I've David Pocock with me at the moment. We just want to give you a quick call and talk about all the great work you guys are doing at the moment. How are you?
We're all right. Thank you so much. Welcome.
Baba Ncube, how are you?
The big bro. How are you?
I'm well, thanks.
You've got Patience there with you, do you?
How are you?
I'm fine, thanks. How are you doing?
Doing well, thank you.
Patience, tell me about the important work that you're doing there and that David's supporting. What are you doing?
Many things, Craig. We've seen our work grow from one point to the other in leaps and bounds from where we started with Dave Pocock in 2010. I will highlight the mother's shelters that Dave assisted us to put up or to renovate in Kai. It was at a time when all infrastructure in the country as a whole was down after the war. And you find a situation whereby women, when they are pregnant, it is vital that they are close to health facilities for monitoring purposes and all. But because these were down, it was impossible for them to be that close to those facilities. And so the mortality rate was quite high as a result of not having proper medical attention. So when Dave came, we were able to renovate 2 mothers' shelters at the 2 local clinics, and we were able to furnish them to a very high standard that is suitable for giving birth. It's just one example, Craig.
It's brilliant work, Patience. It really is. Do you know, if you don't mind, I just wouldn't mind finishing up with Anania, just maybe tell us about the importance of having David involved in the charity and what he brings to it, because we've seen what he's done with his work in Australia, and he seems to be having the same impact over there.
I think he played a very, very, very vital role. And as I'm talking, just as an example, in all these hardware that we're involved in, or we are involved in, talk about nutritious gardens, water, proper livestock, but there is a hub part of it where we're talking about trainings. So I would say the most other important thing is to reset their minds and say, okay, this is where you are going. Something that could align now with the vision of HAFO, and also tapping from whatever they would have wanted to do for them to move forward.
As they say, Nanya, you know, give a person a fish, they eat for a day, teach them how to fish, and they eat for a lifetime. Great work you're doing there at HEFO. Thank you so much to yourself and Patience for joining us. Really good talking to you. Take care of yourselves. Good luck with everything in the future. Take care.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Bye. See you soon.
Sorry, David, we could have spent the whole time talking to the two of them. I mean, it's incredible work. They're so passionate. What lovely people. It's just a lovely way for us to finish, I think, with you, because we've spoken a bit about rugby, but not a huge amount. I mean, your impact on the world has been kind of quite broad and far-reaching. So congratulations on that. It's been really nice talking to you. Have you enjoyed the experience?
I really have. I mean, one of the funnier rugby-related experiences I've had was actually with Anania. We were out at Ncube and we were visiting the local prison. They were doing some work with prisoners around, like, you know, having gardens and trying to improve their nutrition. And the guy who ran the prison out in like the middle of Zimbabwe, he had actually watched the 2011 World Cup somehow and was giving me crap for Australia not winning it. Kind of saying, like, how could you have lost? Like, what was going on? It was really cool.
Thank you so much for your time. We've chatted a lot longer than I thought we would, but it's been really interesting, David, and keep up the good work. It's brilliant stuff. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Craig. Thanks for having me. That was a lot of fun.
Well, there you go. Is it a rugby podcast? It's kind of a rugby podcast. It's a people podcast, and the effect that some of these players have had on the world and lived these really interesting lives. David Pocock, certainly a really good example of that. I hope you enjoyed it. Please do check out our other amazing episodes. Brian O'Driscoll and Will Carling, Brian Abana, Maggie Alfonsi, Sean Fitzpatrick, Kenny Logan, to name but a few. These are the biggest names in world rugby, and they have handed over their contacts on their phones to me. So we get to have these great chats. So please do subscribe, share the program to all your friends, all your colleagues, review, give us a 5-star, that would be nice. Just spread the word. Many more to come. This show was produced by Keith Doyle. It was assistant produced by Brian O'Driscoll. Sound editing has been by Mark Sharman. The Contact Book is a 3 Rock production for Audi. I'm Craig Doyle. Thank you for your company, and bye-bye.